for day 4 of Money Freedom Starts with Your Pricing. And it's really a simple concept. When you want to double your income for the year, the first recommendation I make is to double your prices. And that always freaks folks out. And then they have a body reaction, they have feelings, lots of feelings around it. And it lets me know where they're stuck in their pricing. And over the last few days, we have talked about that. So the assignment has been all week for all of us to say, tomorrow we are going to double our prices and we're going to be that business owner. And that lets us know so much about what's going on inside of you around your pricing, your money, your offers. And we want you to get past that and to have the right kind of offer at the right pricing so you give value to your clients, results that they love, and then they refer you. So let's kind of recap what went on day 1, day 2, and day 3, and then we'll get into day 4 real quick. So day 1 really was me setting out the framework that business problems are really disguising personal growth problems. And that's always the case, especially around money, especially around pricing, especially around sales in anyone's business. And it really comes down to a personal growth issue, something that you're holding on to, some safety issue, some fear issue, scarcity mindset, whatever it is, it shows up when I shock people by saying, tomorrow you're doubling your prices. Most people don't feel they're being paid enough in the entrepreneurial space because they feel like they're working so hard to get those clients. And they're probably working even too hard because when you have the lens of being fearful around your pricing, what happens is that's the lens through all your strategy, your offers, and what's going on in your business. And so it always lets me know that those business problems are actually personal growth problems. So in day 2, what we talked about, well, what is the framework around our pricing, right? Our framework tells us where we should go and what we should be paying attention to. So the framework is not complicated. It's never complicated. It's usually more difficult for folks to implement. So the first thing is you have to decide what you're going to do about your pricing. Are you going to play small in your business, in the business market that you're in? Or are you going to decide that I'm going to be paid the worth that I bring to the table and the value I bring to the table? And so the first part of the framework is to decide. The second part of the framework is for you to check in with yourself, check in with your current clients and your audience, and what feelings do you think you have around actually charging the price you should be charging for the value you bring to the table, and what your clients would feel if they were paying currently now $10,000 and they came to you and wanted to hire you, but your pricing was $20,000 for the offer. And what are the feelings and thoughts you have around that? And then how about your audience? If they knew you were had $20,000 offers, now you may have some smaller ones, but your core offer is what I'm talking about, is that you need to know what's running through your head and running through your heart around your feelings around that, because that's what's getting in the way of your pricing. And then, of course, the 2 key questions that you have to keep asking yourself: who do you need to be that person that has doubled their pricing and they are giving that value? And what does your business need to be for others to choose you easily? Because that's what you want. Most times people do a subtraction. If I raise my prices, I'll have less clients or nobody will buy from me. And I will say sometimes that does happen, but what I see happening is who you lose are the people you shouldn't have been working with in the first place, because they're not what I love to call right fit clients, right? So who does your business need to be to choose you? And who do you need to be able to ask for the pricing that's all about your value? Right. And so, and that's the next thing. What does the value in the framework? What is the value that your offer provides? And there are three components to that I talk about in the framework. One, you have to get great results. Number two, you have to have an emotional component about yourself that draws people to you. If you could call it magnetism, you could be magnificent. I guess I'm in the M words right now, but what do you attract emotionally from people that they know? The third factor is that you can be trusted. They're willing to give out the credit card number, and that trust is that you have their back. And then the last piece of the framework is how much confidence do you have? The interesting thing about confidence, and I said it, was that confidence has a lot of roots to it. It can affect our visibility. It can affect our confidence around asking for business, stating your price. So all those are really important. And so that's basically the framework for you to have the right offer and the right pricing. And then yesterday we talked about false beliefs, and I already alluded to some of them. If I raise my prices, I'll have less clients. No one will hire me. I have to play small to have clients. And we're not embracing the idea of visibility, especially. We'll talk a little bit about that today. But the false beliefs that really set the tone for you staying stuck in your pricing. And that's why day one was so important, that business problems, especially around money, are all about personal growth problems, because there's the fear factor, the playing small factor, the inability to look beyond who you are and just playing a small piece of you. You want to be more than that, and you can be more than that, and you can have higher pricing. It can be done, and it doesn't have to have you being stuck for years on end. You don't know how many people come to me and haven't raised their prices in 10 years, 5 years, and are struggling month after month with inconsistent income, and they never have any money in the bank account, and they always play at what I call entrepreneurial poverty. And entrepreneurial poverty is anything below $100,000. And maybe to some of you that's a shock, but those of you that know, by the time you pay taxes and you pay your expenses and you try to pay yourself a little bit, and maybe you have one team member if you're under 100,000, there's nothing left hardly to pay you, let alone create profit. So, having a business is all about getting to live the lifestyle of money freedom and time freedom and being able to put your genius out in the world. Well, you can't put your genius out in the world if you don't have the funds to do the things that all businesses need fundamentally, and then to invest in yourself at a pace that brings you at your best. And what you're supposed to be doing out there to be a game changer, to be a change maker, to change people's lives. And it doesn't matter if it's a service or a product. These fundamentals are all the same, and these same problems come up for everybody. And so those internal false beliefs are playing out for you, even when you think that isn't doing that, was only having the capacity at this point to access 10% of our conscious brain. That means 90% plays out that we don't know about. So the interesting thing is that we do a lot of work using some proprietary systems that bring that out, so you know what really is in your way around your pricing and your money. A lot of people want money in their business, but they're afraid to sound greedy. And so I always like to tell people money isn't everything. but it touches everything in your business. And it is a fundamental of business. You don't open a business, I know you've all heard this before, to have it as a hobby. And if you want it as a hobby, great, just claim it. Just claim it and just say, I do this for free, or I charge based on income, however you want to do that. If you want to be a nonprofit, but you listen, nonprofits, they have to ask for money all the time. And what they have to ask for, it's equivalent to what we call in the entrepreneurial space, their pricing. And so it's the same type of frameworks and the same types of internal false beliefs that are running for you. And so that means 90% of it is running for you. I had a client last year that has always invested in herself. She invested, and she was one of those that implemented at the highest level. If her coach said, you need to do this, she did it, and at a speed I had never seen before. And I had watched her from the outside in several groups and watched what she was doing. And finally, we had a conversation, and I said, I really admire how you implement and how you do things. And I mean, she almost cried, and I almost cried with her, because what I found out is her income had never changed, and she was struggling. And what she wanted were two things. One, she wanted to be able to add $100,000 to her business, additional income. And then she wanted to go from 5 days a week to 4 days a week. Well, to do that, that means that you have to be a different person, a different version of you, not a different person, a different version of you, a higher version of you, to be able to do that. And I knew when she hired me that this woman would do it all. And in terms of implementation. And there were days that I, from a personal growth perspective, that she, even though I told her ahead of time, we were going to do that work also, that she didn't realize what that meant. It wasn't therapy. It a little bit of psychological, a lot about what sits in the unknown for us, and also how to bring that out in a way that we go, aha, that is really the cause of this business problem for me, along with the strategy. Well, I'm here to tell you, even though there were days she said, I did not like what you said to me, she always came back. We always had a lot of love with each other and for each other. And she said, I could not believe when I did my numbers in November, our conversation was in December, after a year of working together, that we added $75,000. We didn't get to 100, but my goodness, when I showed the numbers to my husband, because, he was want to know, why are you in this business? Some of you hear this. Why are you in the business? You're not making any money. And the man tends to have that pragmatic viewpoint. You got to make money if you're going to spend all this time away from me and the kids, or if there are no kids, and you have to enjoy yourself, and you shouldn't struggle after a while. And she had been in business for 10 years. And he became a true believer. He got on a couple of our calls in December and said, I'm a believer. And she has started this year with a bang, and everything changed. Even her facial expressions are just more animated. Her new photo shoot she did. So that's the visibility piece that comes in and gets a boost when you do this work. So today, though, I want to start off with, so anyways, she was pleased, I was pleased, and all my clients in 2021 have added a minimum of that 75,000 or more, depending where they started. Now, if you're at a beginning, it might be a little less, but they did the framework, they did the psychology and the strategy. And what happens when you do the internal work, which I am a true believer of, you must build your business from the inside out, because then you're authentic out there, and the right people are going to be drawn to you. That is so important. We actually build our businesses the opposite way. We get our websites, our social media, we make an offer, of something. We start with maybe one or two, and we do all the tools and tactics, and people intellectually want to know the tools and tactics? I get that question all the time. But my philosophy is, if you build from the outside in, by the time you get to the inside, you've wasted a lot of time and money. And so when you blossom from the inside out and build your business based on your true self at every big leap you take, you end up building a business based on you and your purpose and the work you do out in the world. And I don't know what's more exciting than that. But people get hung up on the tools and techniques. And it's not that we don't use strategy and tools and techniques. It is, we let the internal guide us there. So we choose the right ones, we attract the right clients, we're in the right pricing, we have the right offers, so we can grow with ease. And that, yes, sometimes it's going to be hard. Yes, sometimes you're going to have to work more, but that you eventually get to the time and freedom lifestyle that your business provides you. And it's important to embrace that, because really, when you have a business, you're really creating a lifestyle for yourself, because it's not, I leave my business and I do my lifestyle separate. It gets integrated. It doesn't mean you don't have good boundaries around when you work and when you don't work, because I have clear boundaries. I didn't used to, especially when I had my private practice as a professional psychotherapist prior to this business for the last 10 years. I got caught up in some of that codependency, and that was an internal piece I had to learn. How could I still be brilliant in my psychotherapy practice and in this business and not be codependent? Because that didn't serve me and it didn't serve my clients. So that's some of the internal work I have done that really shifted how I show up in my business. So today on day 4, we're going to talk about external beliefs that are out there. And I've already alluded to some. And people want the tools and the techniques, and then they say they don't work, or they pay for a year-long mastermind and they just try to implement the tools and techniques. And that's what my client did last year. She was so used to that from other people. And I'm not telling you that other people don't, other gurus, other experts don't have the ability to help you with what you need. I'm just saying, if you're a true believer around yourself, you must know at some point that there's something stuck. And that's the work that I do. And that's my genius work, is to bring that out of you, to either have it go away or manage it, depending where it resides, and then to build a more authentic business. I have hired people myself, these business building masterminds for a year for lots of money, 20K, 30K, and they are brilliant, and they built their business based on them, and they're teaching that to you. What you have to learn when you hire somebody else is to know what really is for you, based on not your fear status, but on who you are authentically and what to take from them. So a lot of times people want to copy and paste because it's the intellectual piece, it's the tools and techniques. And so they come out and they do that, and they'll have some success, but it's not their voice. It's not what they may need, because they didn't build from the inside out. And then those external beliefs on what people tell you out in the market, excuse me, don't work for you. And you have to know how to have a lot of discernment in your business. It's a word that, of course, if you grew up in any church, that's a really common word, but it's the ability to know what to take for yourself in your business, and to leave the others as more, leave the other tips and techniques and tools as intellectual in your brain, in case you would need them later, but interwoven with who you are and what your business is. And so, of course, a lot of external beliefs that I come across with my potential clients and folks that eventually hire me is that they've been at it for a while and there must be something wrong with them. No, there's nothing wrong with you. You're following something intellectually, and we need our brains, right? Our brains think, it's important, but it is the internal piece that knows. That's what you have to remember. Some people say it's your heart that knows. It is your heart, but it's that that internal, probably, well, I want to say soul purpose. That's what's coming up into my head. But there are other things we know now based on psychology and neuroscience that there's actually a chemical interaction that happens and how you know deep inside. And so I find that work fascinating, and I've woven it into my business because what it helps do is create some fast change and some time collapse and not wasting time and money. And so it's really important to have that discernment, so you know whether you're buying a course, where you're buying a year program, a 6-month program, it really doesn't matter. It's the discernment of knowing yourself well. As a business owner, if you don't, that's where you make a lot of mistakes. I made those same mistakes. I probably spent $50,000 on other coaches before I realized what I was doing. And I am someone that had a private practice for 17 years doing transformational work for the longest time. And I didn't catch myself. Well, I was also going through a divorce at the time when I decided to open this business. And so I wasn't my best. I was a mess. And so I didn't realize how messy I was. It took me about 18 months to recognize that, but I had spent a lot of money based on my messiness instead of where I needed to be healthy and what kind of business. And so, you have to recoup from that. It was a lesson, though. I am the person that thinks, unfortunately, even expensive lessons are those for us to learn. So here's what I'm here to tell you. If I can do it, you can do it. I didn't even know what the coaching world, the strategy world, the consulting online world was when I started this business. I had a little hunch from a 3-day event that I went to, and I didn't even know it existed. I mean, I kind of heard of coaching, but my son was in rugby and soccer and through high school and rugby in college. And so I took coaching more as a sports metaphor than anything else. And so, I was shocked that people paid lots of money for this stuff. And because my people were paying $25 copays. Of course, the insurance paid me. Those that paid out of pocket paid a lot more. But my point is, I didn't know. I didn't come with some advantage that I had. What I did was really do the internal work for myself after making a ton of mistakes and turning that around and knowing where I wanted to go, who I was, and knowing that I had this strong personality. I had these gifts around transformation and business, money, and relationships. And I wanted to use them outside of the therapy room because I knew that I could really make a bigger difference out there. And that's been my mission for the last 8 years. So the other external false belief I get is around family and spouses and partners and even entrepreneurial business partners, how that gets in the way, because I do so much in the relational piece in terms of business, like how to build relationships that are long-term in your business, whether it's with your team or whether it's a business partner or whether it's to, they tell you build relationships and you'll be able to sell. That is true, but people really have lost the art of relationships. And then what happens when you're building a business and you have a spouse or partner that doesn't understand entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship is different than having a job. We all know that. And most people really are not entrepreneurs. They don't get it. And so there's a lot of pushback from family and from spouses and from partners that are not in the same space as you, meaning being an entrepreneur. They get a job. They have income coming in every 2 weeks. They have insurance, and it really that lens is different than the lens we have. Now, I've been an entrepreneur for 25 years. And so it always amazes me how I still have to explain that to new friends or new people that are not in the space. And because it's the risk factor that scares people. And, most entrepreneurs have some risk. I like to teach my people good risk versus bad risk, because I have found when people are in the lack mode, they're in the fearful mode, or whatever, the can't be visible mode, whatever it is for you. What happens is there's this pressure that builds up, and they try to all the free stuff or a small course, and nothing's changing, so the pressure is building, and then smack, they come across the pressure because now there's hardly anything in the bank account, and they decide this next program has got to be it, and they buy it, and they spend a lot of money, but they bought it under fear. Oh, not a good lens. So I do teach my people how to make great decisions around business, because you don't want to keep hurting yourself around spending where you shouldn't spend. But I am a big proponent of investing in yourself internally and externally, and your business also. So to me, those are, they're together, but they're separate also. And sometimes you have to, make sure that who you're supposed to show up as, the energy is there, and you may not know how to convey that, or the visibility is there, and you may not know how to convey that. And if you need help, get it, because it's important that you show up as yourself, warts and all. I actually wrote about this for my newsletter next week. I had so much trouble around video, so much trouble. I didn't realize how safe I felt in the therapy room, because it was just me being the expert, even though I knew I was a great therapist. I knew I could make change, and I got that constant feedback from my clients. But I didn't realize how that cocoon, I protected myself for that around visibility and really being out there. And it took a long time for me to actually warm up to video. You could actually see me in the early videos. I actually took a few down because my message is different now. Quite a bit in how I talk about it, but I would wind, you would see my body wind up, and then I would start, because I was actually internally trying to give myself some courage to do it. And all those years as a therapist camouflaged that around being out in the world. And because I was afraid of the feedback. Who would have known that about me? And when I finally admitted that to my colleagues, they were like, of all people, but I knew where it came from in my family. And so I had to do the internal work there too. Now, video doesn't scare me anymore. I wish I was smoother on it. I wish I was better. Some people are just like the bomb on it, but I can do it, and I can do it with authenticity and giving everything I have to give in that moment. But for a lot of people, that visibility, it's hard. And that was a prime big kind of in my face. People say, why aren't you on Facebook? Why aren't you doing this? You would have thought that it would have been easy for me, because I talked all day. But I protected myself in the therapy room. And then when I started doing work with Boeing and NASA, and I had to travel to their locations. Now, this was local for the Coast Guard. So I worked for the Coast Guard. I worked for McDonald's. I worked for several of the banks. I worked for Boeing. I worked for NASA. And I came in around difficult leaders. And then what led to that, during that time I was doing that work, there were a lot of workplace tragedies, people dying at their desk. We did have a murder at one of the businesses. And so the aftermath of that is what I came in for, being robbed when banks were being robbed more back in the day. McDonald's having someone that's just so unreasonable, and it's actually even worse now for businesses that deal with the public. And so I came in on the aftermath, and again, even though I was really great at it and had the right training, I did it in small groups. So I went from the therapy room into small groups and still protected myself. And what became obvious to me that the only way I was going to build this business when I started, I would need to speak. That's how I built my first year in this business. And I got to $100,000 in my first year by using speaking. Now we have to do it a little different. But that also, did I have to learn that visibility piece. And I bring all that up because what I recognized in my own journey around that, it affected my money. It affected my pricing. And because if I wasn't owning what I could do and do at the highest level, and I was afraid because I would be too visible out there, and who is she to talk about it? That kind of was the message I got at home, was that it affected the money. It affected the kind of clients I took. So that's why visibility, I talk a lot about in my programs around pricing, because I've experienced it. And then you know what happens when you get past something or you integrate it into your business, then you seem to attract those type of clients because I kind of know through osmosis and through our energy that we can help you with that. So yeah, that was a big journey and how it affected my business. And so it took me that whole first year, probably into the second year, even though I worked hard and got to 100,000, I worked hard. And that's what got me there. And I just called everybody that would ever take me as a speaker. So it was my work ethic that got me to the first 100,000. Even though I had those personal issues that were giving me business problems. And then once I was able to get past that and manage it, because it's a core issue of mine. If you have a core issue that shows up in your business as a problem, then you learn to manage it. If it's something that's not a core issue, you learn to get over it with the right kind of help. And so here we are into my second year. If I had not caught this, what happens with folks around visibility and their fears, no matter what it is, you push to get to that goal and you have a little bit of relief, but you still haven't solved the real problem, have you? The internal problem. So I didn't want to work anymore. I was working more than 40 hours a week, sometimes 6 days a week. And it's not the kind of lifestyle I wanted, but I knew I had to do it that first year. And so when we ever had the need to do it, it's okay, as long as we can eventually get back and not affect our income. So I also was like, if I work less, I'll have less money. But that one wasn't a core issue for me. So it did that one right away, and I had to get help around some of these, around this core issue. And it was only then that I got to multiple six figures and now on to seven figures. So because I did that internal work at the same time that I built my business, and then have really integrated that for all my clients. So any false belief, whether it comes internal or external, the family pressure is tough, the spouse pressure is tough, and this is where the relationship pieces get tough. It's important for you to be able to know that that's coming from the inside first. And then the second thing, what happens with external false beliefs around your pricing and for you to have money freedom is that there's a reaction to external false beliefs. There really is. And sometimes we're not aware of it. And so there are several reactions that can happen when you're getting pressure from the outside on how to run your business, or you shouldn't do this way. And they're coming from non-entrepreneurial people, or they're coming from colleagues that think they have your best interest, but they really don't know why you can't raise your prices and why you can't have the right pricing for the value, because they don't live your life. They didn't have your experiences. And the external pieces cause us to play small, to be afraid if you don't go along with the external false beliefs that someone will leave you, or you will have to leave someone else. And for women business owners, those things hit our core. And we don't know that's what's going on. So when you're getting external false beliefs, know your reaction could really be to play smaller because the pressure is too much. And that is the point in time for you to really evaluate what you're reacting to. And most of the time, it is the relationship where the external false beliefs are coming from. And that's why, for me, they all go together: business, money, and relationships. The personal is the professional, and the professional is the personal. And you can't build other ways. So those of you that join me a little bit later, what I'm talking about when it comes to your pricing is how to build your business from the inside out. So pricing is never an issue when you get the right pricing with the value you bring to the table. So knowing how I struggled, knowing how my clients struggled, I know you guys can do this for yourselves. You have the capacity to do it. And even though I guide my clients, they do the internal work with the external work at the same time. And I look at myself as a guide to help folks, even though I do have a lot of knowledge and I do give knowledge. So I am not one of those folks that say, hey, what do you think? I am going to answer your question because strategy is so important. So when I think about the internal piece, I think about the business, the money, and the relationships. When I think of the external piece, it's sales, money, it's strategy, and it's leadership, for you to have leadership. And that's how they all go together. So I want to make you a quick free offer right now for any of you. I would love to have a 15-minute conversation, if you would like, and on your pricing and where I think you can take the next step. The next step to be able to raise your prices, get to the next step, that what is matching your offer, that the value is there, which are the results, the emotional component that brings people to you instead of you forcing out there looking for folks, and how to build that trust factor. I'll touch on a few points where you can go right away and get something done around that, because I want you to make more money. Here's the deal. Money, the interesting thing is I'm an Aquarian, and Aquarians don't really think about money first. But I'm also an entrepreneur, and I grew up with an entrepreneurial grandfather. Now, in his family, they owned a business all their lives, and they were able to have this business. There were 13 kids. He was the youngest. Everyone worked in the business. They paid cash for every house, for every family in that business. They didn't have insurance. They paid for all that. They all had land. They all retired someplace. And I never understood at first that where the money was coming from when I was really young. But my grandfather did take me. They had a laundry business and they delivered, and I would always go on the truck. And so I did get at a young age a peep into entrepreneurship, and from a young age, and realize how important to be able to take care of my great grandparents that were able to take care of their 13 children plus their spouses and children, and gave them, bought them homes, as and they worked, all of them worked in the business at some point. And some of them retired from the business. My grandfather retired, but then couldn't stand being retired and drove a cab just to talk to people. My grandfather really was the marketing and sales manager for this business, even though that title wasn't available to him back then. He was king of that. And so it made me realize, once I got it, as I got older, that money in a business, what gives you the lifestyle. It doesn't mean you have to have yachts. They bought cars, but nothing was ever flamboyant. But I realized that they weren't going to jobs. They were building this business for the whole family. 13 plus my great grandparents was the lifestyle it gave them. They got together all the time as a family. They traveled all the time. Most of them retired in Florida and were buying homes there. They never really worried, even though they didn't buy extravagant things. They were able to actually pass that money down to my grandfather and his siblings, and than to my mom. It was my mom and her siblings. And it stopped there. There's a whole generational thing about businesses that I think I'm going to do a training on at some point, but it stopped there, and that happens a lot. So to know that it's about the lifestyle, not what money can do for you, and what you can give to your clients at a bigger scale, what you can do for yourself, what you can do for your family, and what you can leave behind, the legacy to leave behind. So my legacy I want to leave behind is an educational trust fund for grandchildren that are not here yet, and for it to last for a couple generations. So it won't happen unless I make money, but not to be greedy, but to be able to live my purpose. And I got past the Aquarians I meet that are in poverty, because it's not natural for Aquarians to really embrace that. But I have other things about me and what my grandfather taught me that made me understand from a heart perspective and a soul perspective what money can do for you. And I want there's no reason for 80% of the entrepreneurs out there not to be making at least $100,000 a year. There really isn't. The information is out there. The coaches are out there. So what is the difference? It's all, and every research survey that do, it's all about cash flow. So you've got to start with yourself and the money, and then know how it feeds you to do your purpose. So that's the reason for that. And I really would love to do a 15-minute offer for you. You can, just make a comment in the Instagram, and I'll DM you the link for that. And if you're here on Zoom or Facebook, just let me know, and I'll send you the link. The second piece is I do have a 6-month program called Radical Change in Your Money. And if that's something you want to do more in-depth work, it's with a small group of folks, and it's all about changing your money, all things sales, all things pricing, anything that touches your business and how it positions you in the market, and how it really drives your marketing, and how it really drives how you build, and how you can even build a team. So all of those things we talk about: positioning, messaging, compelling offers, pricing, getting consistent lead generation, all things for you. And so just let me know, and I'll be glad to send you the link, because if you're ready, this is what you should do first. And if you just want to stick your toe in with me, then do the 15-minute. You can do both. I'd be glad to actually talk to you about the program if that's what you want. And I do have a bonus. It's a 6-month program. You can, pay in full, or you can take 12 months to pay the 6-month program, which it cuts your payment plan in half, and you will be able to gain some time freedom while you're building your money freedom. And I think I forgot to tell you that the pay in full is $5,000. And the 12-month program bonus right now is $458 a month, something reasonable, because I'm really on a mission to help people radically change their money, because I know there's so much more on the other side. So I had a couple questions that came through from yesterday. And so I want to talk about that. And it is, how do you know your false beliefs, your internal false beliefs? And so I used the exercise of double your prices. Your coach, tomorrow I want you to double your prices. And so if you did that exercise, a lot of things came up for you. You might have had a physical reaction, an emotional reaction. And here's what I want to say about an emotional reaction. Emotional reactions drive your actions, not as much as you're thinking. This is why in the industry we teach more tools and techniques for folks, because it's easier because you're using your brain capacity. It's really hard to teach behavior. It really is. I learned that a long time ago being a psychotherapist. And so there's different ways to change behavior that is not a tool or a technique. And it's a little bit more like a process. So you can change your behavior on your own. I'm not saying that you can't. And if you want to go ahead and try that, look at your emotional reactions to your business. You get an email from somebody or a client that's asking too much for what they paid you. Those annoying clients. And so what you did was not take a right fit client. What about, so now you've got to look at that and do a little bit of homework for yourself and say, what are the things that I didn't see in this person that's not a right fit? It's not that they're bad. They're a pain in the butt right now because they aren't the right fit. And there are some people that are just a pain in the butt. But most of the time, it's because you took them anyways. And when we're beginning, we know it. And sometimes I have done it in the past. I haven't done it in a long time, taking someone, even though I heard the red flags. And when you're not sophisticated in red flags yet, what happens is you take them thinking, because sometimes someone can give you a false mask at first. And then when you get to work with them, that mask comes off. And I have to teach my folks that you know what to look for red flags. But most of the time, it's not about a right fit client. And now you've got to examine that. You got to write the person's name. You got to write all the things that annoy you about that person, because it's really not about them when you're doing this. It's not a reflection on them. It's a reflection on you, because you chose the wrong client and they're just teaching you that lesson. And most of the time, we don't like to be taught lessons that way, but write it down and really be honest with yourself. This is the biggest problem that I have. Well, I had it with myself. I still once in a while do not trust myself to give an honest answer. And most people lie to themselves. I said the other day, most people lie about money all the time. And it's a cultural thing. And it's not because they're bad people. It's because they're afraid people. And so know that when someone is not giving you a direct answer about money, that's the problem. But it happens even with other topics. It's all about you learning what that's speaking to you. Your business speaks to you every single day. And with an annoying client, it is telling you you took someone you shouldn't have. And now you've got to examine that, because it's really your lesson. Okay. So let's take so that was one. And so another, how do I know? So it's the annoyance pieces that let you know where your false beliefs are. And it's up to you to do some work around that. If you're not quite ready to get some help with it, you can make a difference. Just doing lists and writing what was annoying today about my business. And it's because another big problem around offers, pricing, and everything is lead generation, not having enough people to talk to in my audience or referral system or whatever. Well, that again is you are not doing something. You're not understanding something, and whatever that personal growth issue is around you not doing lead generation is for you to figure out when that happens. And so most people, what they do, so here is an internal false belief that happens with lead generation, is they don't do it, or they do a very little. They expect to get people signed up and then they let it go for months on end, because number one, they don't like it. Number two, they've tried all kinds of the tools and technique ways that don't work for them because it's not a right match. Again, it's all about right fit. And so it's better to ignore it. But what happens? You have inconsistent income. Totally inconsistent income, because you don't have enough people, let alone about being able to say your price to somebody, having a conversation on Zoom or the phone or through DMs or private message or text message. It doesn't matter. It all applies. It's all the same thing, except the context is different. And that is the only difference that changes. Business fundamentals are the same from 100 years ago. The context is different. How many people are entrepreneurs are different. And that's affecting business right now. And so people are undercutting people a lot. And we're seeing people that I never thought would have an income problem right now that are having it. And if you're having an income problem, everyone is having a little bit of an income problem. And I'm going to tell you why. Even though people are wanting more money, they don't want to learn anymore about sales techniques. They don't want to have that kind of learning. They're overwhelmed for the last 2 years. Even if you don't have a mental health problem, through osmosis, most people are overwhelmed and they need that emotional component I was talking about on day 2. They need to trust you. Those are the pieces you've got to actually put up front right now, because people need some help. Their energy is low and that capacity to learn is overwhelmed, not by how much they're learning, but just through osmosis in this world. And even if you don't watch the news, you're still affected in some way. And we're at opposite ends, politically, medically, and it's not a judgment call. It's just what it is. We're in this system right now that the world is overwhelmed, and it does filter down to you. And what I'm noticing in the work I'm doing with some of the folks that are making multiple millions of dollars is to get them to switch to that value is more needed right now. So people's capacity to hear you about the value you bring can be heard, and you can close clients and bring new clients on. So even if you have a small business and you're not where you're at yet, it's important for you to put the trust factor out there. Now, we say that a lot with lip service. Trust for us, as most of us are online, or at least 3/4 online, even if you may do something in person now, the bottom line is people still have to trust you. They want to know that they can trust you, and will this work for me? And so you've got to put up that kind of language in your post on social media when you speak, and knowing that they have that you have their back. It's so important that when they fall, that you're there to catch them, because right now most people don't feel they're being caught by the greater world. And so it just comes through osmosis. It doesn't matter what you believe or what you're doing, we're all affected. And so I'm finding the entrepreneurial market space saturated with people pushing more, but those people making sure they've got the language of trust and the emotional component. And I don't mean crying. I don't mean anger. It's not what it is. It's about connecting. So if your false beliefs are gone, there's room for the real you to come out, and they're feeling that emotionally, right? It's not a false authenticity. A lot of times we see with influencers, people that do extremely well with small audiences, that's what's happening. And they get referrals and they get clients, and they don't need 1 million followers. They don't need whatever a lot of other people need when they go on volume. I don't want to go on volume because I want to be able to do the deepest process I can to get my people where they need to be. So I hope this has been helpful. I just want to remind you again, just reach out, be glad to look at your pricing for you, and give you a tip in the 3 areas, the value, the results, the emotional piece, and the trust piece that what your pricing conveys. And then if you're ready to do something, come on over and be with us in Radical Change in Your Money. It will make a huge difference in the world. And of course, the bonus to take 12 months instead of 6, because I want this program. This is my second go around with it. I did 2 other groups. So it's 3rd round, excuse me. And I'm really jazzed about it because it really makes a difference. And so I want to make a difference in your life too.